Have you ever been fully loving a sci-fi or fantasy book series only to have the author fail to deliver in the end? I sure have. It's painful, it's not right, and today I'm venting a little bit. Here's my top 12 examples. Welcome to Fantasy for the Ages, the show where a father and son talk about fantasy, science fiction, horror, and other nerdy things that we enjoy. I'm Jim, the father of this channel. My son Zach is not around here today. It's a solo episode. I hope you're going to enjoy it. Let's assume you will. Go ahead and hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And we hope you'll hit that notification bell so you catch the content that keeps coming out just for your entertainment. And a shout out to our Patreon supporters. Thank you for being there for us month after month. If you'd like to check out our Patreon and see what kind of perks come your way as you join our Fantasy for the Ages family, look in the show notes. There's a link. So I'm a pretty positive guy. Our channel shows it. I love to talk about the things I love. So does my son Zach. Things have to be really off the rails for me to be willing to admit how badly something disappointed me. But today, here we are. 12 fantasy and science fiction series, book series that just definitely left me disappointed. The endings, they just did not deliver. And as such, I really don't go around recommending these book series much at all. No shame if you enjoy some of the ones I'm going to talk about today. We all have our subjective feels on what we read. But the endings of these series just didn't do it for me. Of course, to truly disappoint, it's got to be really delivering at the beginning. These are books that were incredible, series that were amazing from the get-go, maybe a few books along, and then just couldn't frickin' land the plane. The ending? So let's get to it. In ranked order, I'm going to reveal the books from my own personal reading experiences that most disappointed with the endings. And I'm still not over it. There are surely other series that could be listed here that I just haven't read. So once I'm done, feel free to put yours, do a little venting down in the comments. But let's keep it spoiler light. I'm not going to ruin these series, even though the author may already have done so. We'll keep it spoiler light. But before I actually get into the list, 2 dishonorable mentions deserve recognition. And these are The Kingkiller Chronicle by Patrick Rothfuss and A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. Both for the same reason. Incredible narratives, wonderful books, stories that deliver and aren't finished. And it's been well over 12 years for both of them since the last book came out. So I don't know if they're really going to disappoint me, except that the fact there's no book when I love these so much is already quite a disappointment. The only hope and the reason they don't make the official list is Rothfuss, Martin might decide to finish these someday. I still have hope. Call me an optimist. Call me a fool. But it is what it is. Now, the fantasy and sci-fi series that gave me soaring highs, only to crash and burn when it came to the ending. These are the series that started fantastically for me, but left me disappointed by the time the final pages closed. Here we go, from least disappointment to the most. Number 12 on this list is The Chronicles of Amber by Roger Zelazny. Now, don't get me wrong. The first 5 books, brilliant. Corwin's saga gave us intrigue, betrayal, and some of the best multiverse fantasy ever written. But then came books 6 through 10. Merlin's arc. Now, they're not terrible, but instead of being sharp and mythic, we got some rambling technobabble and a weaker overall story. What started as a classic masterpiece fizzled out into something that just didn't live up to its predecessor. its own legendary status. Again, they're all right, and Zach really loves them, but they disappointed following those first five. Number 11 on this list is the Witcher series by Andrzej Sapkowski. The main saga concluded in The Lady of the Lake. Love it or hate it, there's a lot of opinions out there. For me, it pretty much worked. And again, whether you liked it or not, it had finality. There's an ending of sorts. But then came Season of Storms. I'm like, oh, another Witcher book. And it's a prequel. And a bunch of little stories that are only kind of connected. They didn't really add a lot of value to the story. It felt like it was a tacked on epilogue that I didn't really need. After such an intense and emotional main story, so well delivered, this edition came across as hollow and ultimately a letdown. For number 10, I'm giving you the Sword of Truth series by Terry Goodkind. This series, come on, be honest, a lot of you don't like this, but not because of the first book, not because of the first couple, Wizard's First Rule, Stone of Tears. These are fantastic. But over time, Goodkind turned the story into a soapbox, hammering readers with his heavy-handed political and philosophical rants. By the time we get to the finale of the main narrative, we're exhausted. This once thrilling saga had become more lecture than legend. My wife is moving towards the end of the main narrative, and at each book, she's like, do I keep going? I remember the feeling. You want the closure, but is it worth the price? Number 9 is the Night Angel series by Brent Weeks. Now, we're not talking really about the Night Angel trilogy, the first 3 books that are just brilliant, amazing, and end on a perfect note. But then along comes Night Angel Nemesis, reopening a story that already was beautifully closed. Instead of elevating the trilogy, it was a bloated mess of a story that I felt cheapened what we already had, dragging beloved characters back into a continuation that didn't do enough for me to make it worth the experience. Sometimes less really is more. For number 8, I bring you the Belgariad and the Malorian saga by David Eddings. The Belgariad was a bit of a delight. Archetypal fantasy done right. Even if by today's measures, it's pretty basic, feels kind of dated. But then came the Malorian, which more or less retells the same story we already got in the Belgariad, with only minor variations. Instead of raising the stakes, it replayed the tape, leaving readers feeling like they'd invested in a rerun instead of a sequel. A letdown. Okay, the letdowns continue and they grow more. For number 7, I'm bringing you the entire 10-book Chronicles of Thomas Covenant series by Stephen R. Donaldson. The first trilogy, dark, original, powerful. I know some of our more current, younger readers can't stand this stuff, but those of you with me with the classics, this was the bomb. The second trilogy, it kept the depth, but it slowed the pace a little. So you kind of had to work a little more, but I still enjoyed it. And then came that last tetralogy, sprawling, overlong, and bogged down in endless introspection. By the finale, that final book, the impact was diluted, and what could have been epic just felt exhausting. I was so glad to finish the last book because I had to finish. But I would have been better off if I'd never moved beyond the first trilogy, I think. Number 6, the Divergent trilogy by Veronica Roth. Divergent exploded onto the YA scene. Fresh, fast-paced, impossible to put down, even for adult readers. But Insurgent, book 2, sagged. And then the finish, Allegiant, wow. Between the controversial ending, clunky dual POVs, and world-building reveals that felt kind of flat, the finale left fans left me more betrayed than satisfied. For number 5, very similar in vibe, I'm going with the Maze Runner series by James Dashner. The first book, tense, thrilling, mysterious. That was exceptional reading. The sequels, increasingly confusing, with twists that felt arbitrary and answers that never really answered much. By the end, and I don't think I was alone here, was left scratching my head, going, what? Rather than applauding the resolution that was delivered. Nah. Number 4, Ender's Saga, the Quartet by Orson Scott Card. Ender's Game is a classic, no doubt. But the sequels? They shift gears, and very quickly with that second book, and further as you move on through, getting into slow, philosophical territory that starts to bore you to death. By the time you get to Children of the Mind, which wraps it all up, the excitement has completely drained away, and you're left with an anticlimactic finale to what started as one of sci-fi's most gripping tales. It's sorry to see. People laud its depth, its amazing philosophical approach, and I'm like, I just wanted the good story, and you didn't give it to me. You put me through torture. Number 3, The Magician's Trilogy by Lev Grossman. The first book sold itself as grown-up Harry Potter meets Narnia, and they weren't wrong. It had edge, wonder, and a spark of danger. But by the end of The Magician's Land, much of the wonder had faded. Some arcs landed, many of them fizzled. Then you've got excessively graphic adult content that feels shoehorned in to make it a more grown-up series, and the finale itself just did not pack the punch that I was looking for, and I don't think I was alone again. Number 2, The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins, and I have spoken about this one many a time, so this might not surprise you, but it might leave you wondering what my number 1 is. The first 2 books of The Hunger Games, they're lightning in a bottle. Those are great reads. I plowed right through them. But Mockingjay turns grim. And it goes so far that it's completely joyless. It drains all the energy out of the story. The ending is bleak and so abrupt that I'm like, what the heck? We read all this for that? Instead of feeling satisfied, I walked away drained, wondering why I invested my time with such a small payoff. I was mad. Suzanne Collins, you botched this. The definition of failing to land the plane. But number 1 is probably the one on this list that is the newest for me to have added. Recency bias? Maybe. But then again, this is a pretty epic series. I'm talking about the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. Okay, we only have the first half of the series. This is supposed to be a 10-book tale, each one heavy enough to break your toe if you drop the book. But that 5th book, Wind and Truth, is supposed to wrap up the first arc. This first half, one cohesive story, and then there will be more. Well, fans were already worrying. Was Brandon Sanderson writing checks he can't cash? Such a tale, so much to it. Could he possibly stick the landing? Well, book 5 did not help give anyone confidence. Sprawling arcs, uneven pacing, stuff shoved in that we didn't even want to see. The ending of the first arc of the set, which was designed to deliver big, and Brandon thought he was bringing it, I'm pretty sure, but many of us were left wanting. Heck, I felt like returning to sender. This is not the story I was looking for. I was definitely underwhelmed and frustrated with Sanderson's choices. Is the book horrible? Well, that depends on who you talk to. For the most part, I don't like thinking of it. I liked a couple little pieces of it, but most of the story I felt was a waste of my time. Big disappointment. I don't even know if I'll read anymore. And there you have it. 12 incredible journeys that just did not stick the landing for me. Some were dragged down by bloat, others by bad philosophy and a author's weird attitude. Some, it was just sheer exhaustion. Maybe they needed more editing. Maybe they just wrote longer than they ever should have tried to tell a story. But all of them prove one thing: no matter how great the ride, the ending really does matter. What do you think of my list? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Like some of them and not others? And do you have other examples that, are outside my reading experience? Put these things down in the comments. I love seeing what you're thinking, and I do respond. It's been a blast having you here with me today. Thank you for watching this video. We'll talk to you next time.